I am 95 years old. I have outlived everyone I worked for. I have outlived everyone I worked with. And some nights, I think that is my punishment, not my reward. My name does not matter. What matters is what I did for 40 years inside rooms most people will never see, sitting across tables from men most people will never meet. I was an accountant, but not the kind who sits under fluorescent lights and files tax returns for small businesses. I counted different numbers, numbers that had no names attached to them, numbers that were moved quietly, cleaned carefully, and made to look like they belonged to legitimate businesses, restaurants that never had customers, construction companies that never built anything, import firms that never imported anything real. I was good at it. That was the problem. When you are good at something, even something wrong, the world keeps you there. It rewards you. It makes you feel necessary. And feeling necessary is a dangerous thing when you are a young man with nothing and someone powerful is telling you that you matter. I was 23 years old when I first walked into that life. I told myself it was temporary. I thought I had time to walk away. I was wrong. 40 years passed like smoke through a cracked window. Fast, gone. And what was left behind was the smell. A smell that never fully leaves. I am not here to romanticize what I was part of. There is nothing romantic about it. I am here because I am 95 years old, and I have watched too many men take the same door I walked through, that door that looks like opportunity, that looks like belonging, that looks like finally being chosen, and I have watched what happens on the other side. I need you to understand something before I go any further. The cost of that life is not paid at the end. It is paid every single day. You just don't see the bill until it's too late to do anything about it. I thought I had time to change. I grew up with nothing. Not the kind of nothing people say when they mean they didn't have luxuries. I mean real nothing. A father who disappeared before I could remember his face. A mother who worked 3 jobs and still came home with empty hands. Apartment so cold in winter that we slept in our coats. When you grow up like that, you don't dream big. You dream safe. You dream of just enough. Enough food, enough warmth, enough quiet. So when a man in a good suit looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You're smart, I can use someone like you," I did not hear a warning. I heard a door opening. His name was Carmine. He was not the boss. He was not even close to the top. But to a 23-year-old boy from nothing, he looked like everything. He drove a clean car. He ate at real restaurants. He spoke slowly, like a man who knew the world would wait for him. He introduced me to the organization carefully. First, it was small things. Organizing receipts, reconciling numbers for a restaurant that I quickly understood had almost no real customers. Simple work, clean work. On the surface, I told myself I was just doing accounting. Numbers don't bleed. That's what I told myself. Within a year, I was deeper. I had a nice apartment. I had money I had never seen before. I had respect from men who frightened other men. And I had a girlfriend, a beautiful woman named Rosa, who believed I worked for a private financial consulting firm. Rosa, she used to iron my shirts on Sunday mornings and hum while she did it. I would sit at the kitchen table and watch her and feel something I can only describe now as borrowed happiness, because somewhere inside me, even then, I knew none of it truly belonged to me. I had not earned it with honest work. I had rented it, and the interest on that rent was something I had not yet been shown. The years moved. I got better at what I did, more trusted, more invisible, which in that world is the highest compliment. The invisible ones last. The ones who talk, who show off, who draw attention, they disappear. I learned to disappear into the numbers. But here is what no one tells you about living inside a lie for long enough. The lie does not stay outside of you. It moves in. It rearranges the furniture. It makes itself comfortable. And slowly, the man you were when you walked through that door, the young man who still had some innocence left, some softness, some hope, that man starts to get quieter and quieter, until one day you realize you cannot quite remember what his voice sounded like. I thought I had time to find him again. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesday was the day I always called my mother. Every week, without fail, for years, a small ritual, a thin rope I kept tied to something real. That Tuesday, I did not call. I was busy with numbers, a large movement of money, complex layering across several businesses in 3 different cities, the kind of work that required full concentration and no interruptions. I told myself I would call her Wednesday. Wednesday came, I was still buried in the work. I told myself Thursday. Thursday my phone rang before I could dial hers. It was her neighbor. My mother had died quietly in her apartment sometime Tuesday evening, alone, in the same cold city she had worked herself to exhaustion in for 40 years. The neighbor had noticed the lights were off too long. I sat with that phone in my hand for a very long time. And the very first thought that came to me was not grief. It was calculation. How quickly could I finish the work on my desk? How soon could I get away? Whether the timing would cause any problems with the money movement. That thought lasted only a second before the grief arrived. But that second, that 1 second of cold calculation before human feeling, that told me everything about what I had become. I went to her apartment after the funeral. Small place, smaller than I remembered. She had a photograph of me on her dresser. A photograph from when I was maybe 8 years old, sitting on a stoop somewhere, squinting into the sun and smiling. She had kept it in a frame. That boy in the photograph had no idea what was coming, no idea what choices were ahead, no idea that one door, walked through at the wrong moment for the wrong reasons, could quietly replace him with someone he would not recognize. I stood in that small apartment for a long time. Rosa was with me. She held my hand. She did not know what I was really thinking. She never fully knew what I really did. And standing there, holding the hand of a woman who loved a version of me that did not entirely exist, looking at a photograph of a boy I had slowly erased, something cracked open, not broke, cracked, because broken things sometimes heal. Cracked things let the cold in permanently. I did not leave the organization that day. I want to be honest with you, I did not have some immediate transformation. That is not how real life works. But something shifted in my chest that never shifted back. For the first time in many years, I felt the full weight of what I was carrying. Not the money, not the risk, the cost, the real cost, the years given to men who would have buried me without a second thought if I became inconvenient. The Sundays stolen from Rosa while I worked in rooms she was never allowed to know about. The phone calls to my mother that I kept shortening because I was always busy with something that, from where I stand now at 95 years old, meant absolutely nothing. I thought I had time to make it right. Later never came, not the way I imagined it. Let me tell you what I believed for most of my life. I believed that money was safety. I believed that if I accumulated enough, moved enough, cleaned enough, protected enough, that one day I would reach a number that finally felt like enough. A number that would let me breathe, a number that would make the weight lift. That number never came, because the truth I paid 40 years to learn, is that money built on wrong foundations does not give you peace, it gives you maintenance. You don't enjoy it, you maintain it, you protect it, you watch it constantly, you sleep lightly because of it, you trust no one because of it, you build walls instead of relationships because of it. I watched powerful men who controlled entire streets, entire businesses, entire politicians. I watched these men die afraid, not afraid of death, afraid of what they had not done, afraid of the faces they saw when the room got quiet. That fear has nothing to do with the criminal world. That fear lives in office buildings too. It lives in corporate boardrooms where men sacrifice their children's childhoods for quarterly numbers. It lives in families where fathers are physically present but mentally absent for decades. It lives in relationships where people stay busy, deliberately, desperately busy, because stillness means feeling what they have been running from. The uniform is different. The mistake is the same. We tell ourselves a story. The story goes like this. Right now, I must do what I must do. Right now, the circumstances require this. Right now, I have no choice. But later I will slow down. Later, I will be present. Later, I will call more. Later, I will say the things I have been meaning to say. Later, I will become the person I always intended to be. Later, That word, that single word has stolen more lives than any weapon I ever saw in 40 years inside that world. Later never came for my mother. Later never came for Rosa, who waited patiently for a version of me that was fully present, fully honest, fully hers, and grew old waiting. Later never came for the young man in that photograph on my mother's dresser. He waited too. He waited for me to come back for him. I never did. Here is what I know now, at 95 years old, with nothing left to protect and nothing left to hide. The most valuable thing you will ever have is not in any account, it is not in any building, it is not in any title or position or acquisition. It is the unrepeatable moments of your actual life, the Tuesday phone calls, the Sunday mornings, the ordinary evenings that feel like nothing while they are happening and feel like everything once they are gone. I counted millions, tens of millions, numbers so large they stopped feeling real, and I would give every single one, every clean dollar, every moved figure, every number I ever touched, for one more Tuesday phone call with my mother, for one more Sunday morning, watching Rosa hum while she ironed my shirts, for one more moment of being that 8-year-old boy on the stoop, squinting into the sun, with everything still ahead of me and nothing yet lost. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Don't make my mistake. I want to speak to you directly now, not as a story, not as a confession, as one human being to another. You are watching this for a reason. Maybe you don't know what that reason is yet. Maybe you stumbled here accidentally, but I have lived long enough to stop believing in accidents. Something in you recognized something in these words, and I need you to take that seriously, because I see you. I see you doing what I did. Maybe not with blood money, maybe not in dark rooms with dangerous men, but I see you trading your real life for something that promises to pay you back later. I see you postponing the phone call, postponing the honest conversation, postponing the moment where you stop and actually feel your own life instead of just moving through it at speed. I see you telling yourself the same lie I told myself for 40 years, that you have time. You may not. None of us know how many Tuesdays we have left. None of us know which Sunday morning will be the last ordinary beautiful morning before everything changes. Before the phone rings, before the diagnosis, before the door closes on something you assumed would always be open. I am 95 years old. I have buried my mother. I have buried Rosa. I have buried men I feared and men I respected and men I should have walked away from the moment I met them. I have sat in rooms full of wealth and felt completely, devastatingly poor, and I have stood in a small, cold apartment, looking at a photograph of a boy I abandoned somewhere along the way. That is the life I built with 40 years of careful, skillful, dedicated work. Do not let that be your story, not because your path looks like mine, but because the mechanism is the same. The postponement is the same, the slow erosion of what actually matters in favor of what feels urgent. That is the same. The things that feel urgent are rarely important. The things that are truly important rarely feel urgent until they are gone. Then they feel like everything. Then they feel like the only thing that ever mattered. And you are standing in an empty room, understanding that too late. I counted blood money for 40 years, but the real accounting, the accounting that keeps me awake at 95 years old in the quiet hours before dawn, is not in any ledger I ever kept for those men. It is in the moments I did not show up for, the words I did not say, the people I did not fully love, while I still had the chance to love them. That is the only accounting that follows you all the way to the end. And at the end, there are no more movements to make, no more numbers to shift, no more later to promise yourself. There is only what you did and what you wish you had done differently. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Later never came. Don't make my mistake. Whatever you are postponing, whatever conversation, whatever phone call, whatever moment of real presence you keep pushing to some imaginary future where conditions will finally be right. Do it now, not tomorrow, not when things settle down. Now, because the only moment that has ever truly existed is the one you are standing in right now, and it is going. It is already going. Don't look up one day at 95 years old and realize that the life you were meaning to live happened while you were busy counting other things. Go count what matters before the numbers run out. Later never came.